Jesse Jackson has penned an op-ed for the Chicago Sun-Times saying outright we don't need Trump's thugs in Chicago. The excuse for sending federal police here is to protect federal property. The reality is that this is a cynical re-election ploy aimed at earning support for a law and disorder president. You nailed it, Jesse. That's right. Trump's just trying to get re-elected by defending property from violent extremists. But hold on. I got to admit it, friends. You know what? Jesse Jackson is at least correct about one thing. We don't need Trump's thugs in Chicago. Well, I don't like the framing. I wouldn't call them thugs. They're just law enforcement, so calm down. But you know what? As it turns out, hear me out. He's right. Chicago doesn't need them. This may come as a general shock to you. Actually not, because I probably put the title of the video as something pertaining to what this video is about. But you get it. Lo and behold, funding the police was all you needed to make crime go down. You know what? I'm not a fan of police brutality. I'm not a fan of the Chicago Police Department. And I think we need to, be able to hold cops accountable when they do wrong. Who doesn't agree with that? But I also recognize cops do a pretty dirty job dealing with the crazies and the criminals, and it could be dangerous. So you know what? Perhaps cops need better funding. Perhaps we don't need militarized police. Perhaps we need cops who get paid well enough. And I don't know, perhaps there's some kind of reform we can enact to deal with accountability in a proper way instead of just stripping away their funding so many of them can't work or eat or have the proper supplies. But here we go. Jesse Jackson, you are correct. Chicago, in fact, doesn't need federal officers because they've launched 2 new units and violence has already dropped. How about that? What's going on over in New York? Well, over in New York, they got rid of their anti-crime unit. 600 cops were reassigned, and then crime began skyrocketing, and activists started begging, please bring back our police. Well, you know what? Chicago needs better cops. I don't know if more cops is the right answer. Perhaps. That's what they've launched new police units. But I'll tell you what, Chicago needs help. And if the help can come from within, all the better. Here's the story from Fox 32. Good old Fox 32. I remember Fox 32. Chicago violence drops after 2 new police units rolled out, officials say. There has been a reduction in homicides and shooting incidents in Chicago since the city's police force launched 2 units aimed at combating gun violence and ensuring protests and other large events don't devolve into chaos, police said Monday. Chicago Police Superintendent David Brown said tenuous progress has been made in the department's efforts to stem gun violence. There were 3 homicides over the weekend compared to 12 and 8 the previous 2 weekends and 17 over the July 4th weekend, Brown said at a news conference. You know why they want to defund the police? They want to defund the police so that they can control the new police. That's the point. They want morality policing. They want cops to walk around wearing diversity and inclusion badges to tell you that your microaggression warrants a fine. What's that? The clothes you're wearing are appropriating someone's culture. You're under arrest. Yes, if you actually want to deal with crime, it's simple. Fund the police. That's it. No. They joke like refund the police as in like fund them again. No. Just fund them. Just give the police funding. Militarization, I understand. We don't need a bunch of fully armored, combat ready, like soldier looking dudes riding around on APCs. We need cops to feel like they have the tools they need. We need them to be able to engage with the community properly. And I'll tell you what you do need. What I do like that New York does is community policing. Perhaps they don't do it well enough, but you need. New York has a group. It's called like the community liaison officers. I'm probably getting the name wrong, but you can use these police for low tier, incidents, petty theft, arguments, quarrels, homeless person, car accidents, etc. And then you can have other cops for other things. It's funny because they talk about sending out social workers, and I'm like, why not just have, police? If we've got a violent crime situation, then we'll send out cops the equipment they need. And if we've got a bickering argument between neighbors and it's getting kind of heated and there's a dispute, you can send out the community police. Well, I'll tell you this, at the end, I think they're disingenuous in their argument about what they actually want, because as we can see from Chicago, the solution is simple: more cops. That's it. It's more. Look at this. They say the tenuous progress touted by Brown was obvious late Monday when 5 people sitting on a porch in the South Side Burnside neighborhood were wounded by shots fired from a passing vehicle. A 22-year-old man was later pronounced dead at University of Chicago Hospital from a gunshot wound in the back. A man wounded in the buttocks was hospitalized in critical conditions, and 3 others were hospitalized in good condition. Earlier Monday, a 10-month-old girl riding in a vehicle. Come on, Fox 32. You're making the hometown look bad. In a vehicle on a Chicago expressway was shot in the shoulder. What? She was also grazed in an ear by the bullet. Yikes, man. That's just nasty stuff. From 6 p.m. Friday until midnight Sunday, the department recorded 39 shootings. That compares to 41 the previous weekend, 50 the weekend before that, and 87 during the long Independence Day weekend. Our citywide teams deployed Thursday from the first day helped cover more areas that have seen spikes in violent crime, Brown said. While protesters took place in the city over the weekend, none of them turned violent. You know what? I was saying before, as a former Chicagoan, it was the crime there is just, it's ridiculous. Okay. We all know it. Everybody knows it. Come on. It's not the worst in the country. You got cities like Baltimore. They could use some help too. But I was saying, you know what, man, if Trump's the only one going to get the job done, then so be it. Send in some federal investigators to help stop this crime. Turns out they didn't need it. All they needed was for Trump to say it. Think about that. Whether it was Trump's intention or not, you got to get some credit on this one. Trump goes, I'm going to deploy hundreds of FBI, DEA, ATF. It's going to be great. We're going to have great law enforcement. Everybody agrees. And then all of a sudden, the mayor's like, whoop, 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 whoop. We're going to launch some police and get the crime down. They don't want Trump sending in the feds. It's going to hurt their reelection, hurt the suburbs. So you know what they're going to do? They're going to actually do their job for once. By Trump threatening to do it. If they don't, they said, fine, we'll do it. Think about that. It seems like, you know, it's like so obvious, the solution. Whatever Trump supports, they oppose, right? So if Trump comes out and says, I'm going to send in law enforcement to deal with the crime, they were like, no, we oppose that. Well, we're going to send in law enforcement to deal with the crime. I wonder why they weren't doing it in the first place, but sure. The community safety team, look at this. It's exactly what I was just saying. This is amazing. The community safety team of about 300 officers was deployed to areas that have seen an uptick in violent crime this year on the city's west and south sides. The other unit, comprising about 250 officers, is called the Critical Incident Response Team. Those officers have received training in crowd control and First Amendment issues. Awesome. And were deployed to protests and marches around the city. In the future, that unit will also be deployed to major events such as music festivals and the Taste of Chicago, which is awesome, by the way. Go to Chicago and check out the Taste if you haven't. One of the good things I can say about Chicago, which have been canceled this year due to the pandemic, that I will not stand for. The pandemic has gone too far. No, but for real, the Taste of Chicago is awesome. And they do the fireworks over the lake. If you ever want to visit Chicago, that's the time to do it. And, you know, avoid certain neighborhoods. He said the development of the Critical Incident Response Team is especially important because it means officers won't need to be diverted from their own communities to police demonstrations and marches. Every time we have to drain our resources for protests, the people on the west and south side suffer. Brown said he hopes the Critical Incident Response Team will help restore public trust in his officers, long plagued by a legacy of excessive force and racism. The CPD has struggled to convince residents to trust it enough to come forward with information to help solve homicides and other violent crimes. The unit is not a roving strike force, he said. Such units have been criticized in the past for being overly aggressive, and one was disbanded after some of its officers committed robbery. This is Chicago, dude. Wait, I got to read this again. Wait. One unit was disbanded after some of its officers committed robberies and home invasions. That's Chicago, people. That's why, you know what? That's why I'm like, bring in the feds, dude. The roving strike force unit was committing home invasions. Chicago is not a place I would like to live ever again. I'm sorry. That's just a fact. Members of the new unit will instead participate every week in events such as prayer circles, food drives, COVID-19 resource distribution, and other community events, Brown says. That sounds awesome. Good on you, Chicago, getting your act together. I'm glad they disbanded the group of criminal cops who are committing robberies and home invasions. That sounds so much like Chicago. I'm sorry, man. You know what? It's hometown pride in being a mob-run town. It always has been and probably always will be and probably still is to this day. That's what you can get. But I'll tell you what. Jesse Jackson's argument in the Chicago Sun-Times was actually, in my opinion, really dumb, calling Trump's federal law enforcement like brown shirts and other stupid analogies. No. Chicago has a history of corrupt cops. Go look up the story of John Burge. Yeah. That'll make you never want to go to that city. Look up the story. They got corrupt cops across the board. And they got a lot of good cops. I've gone, I went on a night crawl. It's called night crawling, where you go around at night and there's crime. Met a lot of really great cops responding to some really horrific, crimes. So I can only imagine what these guys go through. But there's a lot of bad cops. They're dirty cops. Chicago is gangland. It's mobsters. It's gangs. That's what Chicago's all about. If you like the wild, wild west, there you go. Join the police force over there, huh? I'm kidding, by the way. But look, no. This is it. The narrative is defund the police, abolish the police. The reality is fund the police, create community units and units specifically for demonstrations and events, and you will actually reduce crime. How about that? Was that a surprise to anybody? But we definitely need accountability. So maybe this is the right way to go about it. Specific units might reduce, police malfeasance, and disbanding the guys who are committing crimes certainly seems like a good idea. But there you go, man. Fund the police. Give them the proper funding. Don't overdo it. Make sure they can be held accountable. They're people, same as everybody else, and we can see crime go down. I got a couple more segments coming up in a few minutes, and I will see you all shortly.